Brilliant. Thanks, Stephen. That's an interesting last challenge for sure. Lack of competition, but that's a good overview.
I've got a question, Darren.
Yep.
Steve, what size company are you looking for?
I'm using LinkedIn parameters for my sizing. I'm looking at 400 plus.
Mm-hmm.
Employees, 400 plus employees.
Thank you.
Any specific industries, Steve?
Sorry, I never caught the first part.
Any specific industries?
No, the industries I'm targeting are the industries I'm very familiar with. When I was working in valves, actuators, and controls, that crossed over industrial, manufacturing, and engineering. So those three industries will be the target industry, having all of my focus for at least the first year or two.
Have you got a strategy in place right now to target these industries? I know you mainly are advertising or taking the approach via LinkedIn, but do you have any plan for that? I mean,
no, Aki. At the moment, LinkedIn, building my link. The unfortunate thing I have is my LinkedIn network that I have, which is around 500 anyway, is primarily Asian based from when I was over there. With my product and my market strategy now, that really doesn't help me so much. So I'm starting again with a clean sheet of trying to build in the LinkedIn contacts up in areas of my target client.
Okay, cool.
Steve, I'll introduce you to a colleague of mine who joined Salmon at the same time as me. He's a guy called Brian Austin, and he's based in Manchester, and he's got a big background in aerospace.
Great, now much appreciated.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that manufacturing industry,
yep,
a good area. Certainly, I mean, I've got a contact within that as well, so it'd be useful to understand more about how the system works. Because are you talking about from sales management process, or is it from like you mentioned about operations earlier? So an operational part of that, and then the sales can actually benefit as well from that.
Yeah.
How do you
the tool was once I used it on myself, it was then scaled down to my direct reports. So, for example, my finance manager implemented it in her organization. My sales director implemented it in his organization. You know, obviously the things he was measuring were differently, but they were aligned with the same goals as myself as the general manager, managing director. My operations leader implemented it. So it's a cross-functional tool that can be adapted for any functional head to use. It's not something I would give to a line operator or an assembler or a logistics handler in a workshop, but to a leader who has a small group of teams and is accountable for certain metrics or projects, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, you mentioned there about, identifying, you were saying about the competition aspect of it, but if you drill right back to an individual as such, who would be your customer, who would be a customer, who would be a client?
My target client would be a general manager of someone in one of those industries, for no other reason that I would invest a lot of time and effort with them, setting it up to make it successful for him and his business, such that he sees the value of coming back to me and driving it down for all of his direct reports, rather than me selling the concept.
I see. Yeah, so like it becomes a working, I wouldn't say case study, but it becomes a scenario, doesn't it? That's then easier for people to really understand. That's why we focus very much on identifying those ideal buyers, but it's not necessarily. A lot of people say, "Oh yeah, well, manufacturing," and of course, manufacturing is a huge industry, huge area, and even job roles are big areas. But actually, to say that particular person, that particular profile, buyer persona is, as it's actually drilling down, actually building out then a campaign, be it on LinkedIn or whatever you're doing, to actually target that type of person, that actual characteristics, makes it so much more consistent. It enables it to be consistent along that process. So Yeah, no, great stuff, and I wish you, all the very best with it.
Thanks very much.
Steve, can I ask a really quick question? I think I may have the answer, but you've talked quite a bit about the tool, the wall board, wall poster, and the things that go with it. But would I be right in thinking it's more of a consulting offer from what you're talking about? Because you talk about ongoing email support and everything else.
It is. I obviously have quite a bit of it, probably 25 years experience in operations, running plants, project management. So those are areas I would like to get into with the client at some point, although my primary offer will be the product and the support to make the product successful. If for no other reason than to develop a trust and relationship where the next time I contact them, it's, well, this guy's okay, he helps me. Right. So if I do have something else to offer, but I won't be going in and selling consulting to them. Okay. That would come somewhere down the line.
What do you charge for this?
At the moment, I'm targeting £200.
Okay. I would imagine, when this takes off, you may actually struggle to have conversations with all of your customers. So that's why I ask. It's a case of either charging more and having fewer customers, or having some kind of self-service, isn't it? For the education part. If you are interested in setting up something like e-learning, I've got a bit of experience setting up my own portal for KPI training, so I'd happily share my experiences on that offline if you want.
Brilliant. Thanks, Bernie.
Okay.
Thanks again. And I do think, particularly Alex and David, I know that what Steve you offer is kind of an offline solution, but I think there's possible chances to have chats with some of the other people in the room here about working together, because I think there's a lot of complementary opportunities for you to talk about. Linda, I'm not sure if I got this right, but I think you sent an email saying you needed to leave early. I don't know if you're okay to stay on.
I'm happy. I've pinged the other. I'm normally on another group at 8 o'clock every second Friday, and this morning clashed, but I've pinged them to say I might be jumping on half an hour late.
Okay, all right. I know what it's like when sometimes you need to get off a call, but it's how do you do it? Do you jump off, or do you?
I have got a question for Steve, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
So I was politely raising my hand. I'll jump in next time. Steve, it's an interesting product, and one that I wished I'd had sort of 20 years ago. But it does sort of, it's reminiscent of the planners, the holiday planners that used to put up. I was actually, when your product name BizDash, I was expecting it to be a software or screen-based product, which is quite controversial given the current times where most of especially small business, not so much the corporates, are starting to disseminate and people are getting back into or remote working. How are you approaching that with your prospective clients? Are they not turning around and saying, well, we don't actually have people in offices to look at the boards, etc.? So
the stage I'm at the moment, Linda, is I've got the product out on trial with several customers. So I've handpicked some customers who I have some experience with, and I've sent it out to them. And the plan was to give them 3 months to work with it, and I'll support them during that 3 months, after which time they'll come back and give me feedback that it worked or it didn't work for them, or what I could be doing differently. I'm just coming to the end of that process now. So I'm starting to get references back from people and some good comments. So I haven't really gone beyond that stage. I have some of the product here with me. I bought some bulk, but I'm still waiting for that. That information will then go onto my website, the testimonials and such like. But your point around the digital systems is a valid point. This was a discussion we actually had last week, and it's one of my biggest challenges, the way the world's going, to come up with a manual system when a lot of, especially the younger generation, are going to be thinking, why would anyone have a manual system for anything in today's world? Well, there are some benefits to that. If you look at the latest neuroscience and neuro research about learning and retention and things like that, there's a whole host of white papers out there which tells you the benefits of just writing things down. Just the simple task of writing things down rather than typing it has benefits in terms of retention. Using colored systems, the color coding system, and the way that the eyes and the brain works in reaction to color. So there is some research out there, and I think in many cases I'm going to have to rely on that to convince those people who are going to be hitting you with well, why would I use that instead of an app on an iPad.
Yeah, and that's clearly the area that you've got to get your clients giving you testimonials on as to why the dashboard in front of everybody's faces on the production line is so much more beneficial than having them all leaving the line to get to the computer.
Exactly. But I think it also highlights the fact why niching down is so important, especially in this particular case. So I niched it down to an industry, a geographic location, the titles of the people, the size of the company in terms of how many people in the company. But I'm also niching it down to the ideal person I would approach would be someone in the region of late 40s and older. Hopefully people of that generation would see the value without so much of a challenge with regards to why isn't it more automated?
Yeah. Well, Steve, perhaps we can have a chat offline because the cloud technology might, if you've got a system there that you can process and describe, we might be able to help you implement it.